You can set your mouse to be scrolling by itself, and even when you are not holding it, it can scroll. You can control the speed. You can make it go slow, very slow, or you can make it go very fast.
So back in the 1960s, an animator slash business tycoon bought a bunch of land in Central Florida, turning it into a sprawling resort that specializes in wholesome family fun at unreasonable prices. Ha ha ha, no, not that mouse. Today's episode is about the computer mouse. And at first, you might not think there's much history to discuss because they didn't start becoming widespread on personal computers until the mid to late 80s. But it turns out that the concept of using something other than those clunky arrow keys to move a cursor around predates the modern mouse by several decades. I'm talking about the trackball, which sprang into existence all the way back in 1946 as part of a British Navy project to help track aircraft on radar. This concept was later adapted by the Canadian Navy for their own tracking system, which used a small 5-pin bowling ball, of all things, for the ball because, presumably, they couldn't get funding for a real one. Anywho, these early implementations were rather crude, with the ball placed on top of spinning metal discs that came into contact with wires. But because the UK considered it a military secret, the idea of using a spinning or rolling object as a computer input device wouldn't end up being realized in the civilian world until years later, when the first true mouse was invented in 1964 at Stanford University. Now, unlike modern mice, which have total freedom of movement in one plane, this early mouse only had two pizza cutter looking wheels that allowed movement up and down or side to side, but not at the same time. The inventors decided to call their creation a mouse because the wire sticking out of the end looked like a rodent's tail, and they used it in conjunction with the NLS, a DARPA-funded computer system that included clickable hyperlinks. Remember, this was nearly 30 years before the internet started becoming widespread. Soon after that, the mouse was picked up by Xerox, who developed a personal computer called the Alto in 1973, which used an actual graphical user interface complete with mouse support. And Xerox was actually also developing ball mice while they worked on the Alto, which would allow users to move the mouse in any direction they pleased. These worked by keeping the ball in contact with axles attached to wheels with holes in them. As the mouse moved, the axles would turn the wheels, causing beams of light to repeatedly break into pulses, which hit sensors that registered which way the mouse was moving. This design revolutionized the way we interact with our computers. But Xerox was, and still is, a company that's focused on producing products for business rather than home use, meaning that the mouse wasn't very well known until Apple came along, made a deal with Xerox to give them partial ownership of Apple in return for the use of Xerox's technology, and then popularized the device with the original Macintosh in 1984. Even though Xerox had already switched to ball mice, and Microsoft was already selling them for use with word processors. No doubt Apple's clever marketing played a role in pushing a pre-existing technology into the mainstream consciousness. Some things never do change, am I right? Anyway, aside from changes in ergonomics, which gave mice a shape more suited to the hand than that original plastic brick form, the basic way that they worked didn't really change between the mid-80s and the mid-90s. Though, we did get laptops with those little nub-style pointing sticks and the first trackpads in the interim. So users of external mice had to wait until 1966 for the first widespread mouse with a scroll wheel. Even though that concept had actually been realized back in 1985 with the Mighty Mouse, featuring a wheel on the side instead of the top that you controlled with your thumb. Then the late 90s also brought an even bigger sea change: optical mice. Like the scroll wheel mouse, the optical mouse was first developed long before it hit the market. In fact, early versions that used specific tracking surfaces were actually invented back in 1980, when even ball mice were relatively unknown. but development of optical mice that could work with generic surfaces like mouse pads, tabletops, or your pants didn't happen until much later, and it also took a while for component costs to come down to the point where they were cheap enough to mass produce. When they finally did appear on the consumer market in 1999, optical mice were still expensive, with some of Microsoft's early offerings retailing for around $70 US. In fact, the first ever gaming mouse, the Razer Boomslang, also launched in 1999. But that one still used a mechanical ball. The upsides to optical mice included not only more accurate tracking than with a ball mouse, but also better reliability. The optical sensors, which worked by taking many photos of the surface that the mouse sat on every second, and then sending them to a chip that would process those images to detect movement, were much more resistant to the dirt and gunk that all too often fouled up mouse balls and degraded performance. Later, in 2004, Logitech released a frickin' laser mouse, which would not only incinerate your enemies, but also sport even more accurate tracking thanks to the use of a laser beam which could see surfaces under the mouse with more precision than standard LEDs. This was a boon for more serious PC gamers that wanted the more granular tracking during the heat of battle. And other significant advances in mouse technology began to be driven by gamers over the coming years, such as more powerful processors inside the mice themselves so they could scan surfaces and process movement more frequently, and allowing users to adjust the sensitivity of the mouse on the fly for situations that require precise aiming, like we've seen with the ever-popular sniper button. Now, there have been other improvements to mice in recent years, but they mostly come in the form of adding more general technologies to mice to make them more versatile, like replacing PS2 with USB, which you can learn about here, implementing scroll wheels that can switch between smooth or clicky operation, adding wireless data and even charging support, peppering them with programmable macro buttons, adding the ability to track on glass by scanning for small scratches and dust particles, and of course, covering them with the oh so important RGB lighting that you know that you crave. So, today then. It's been a long time since Doug Engelbart and Bill English gave us their original wooden box on wheels, but the simplicity and intuitiveness of the mouse has ensured its continuation as an extremely important input device, even in the age of touchscreens and voice control. Maybe it'll finally be usurped by the development of something like a neural interface, but by that time we'll probably be dealing with a whole new set of problems anyway.
Alright, so this morning we want to start our lesson on the computer mouse. I told you the last time that there are a lot to learn about the computer mouse, and if you think you are a master of the mouse, wait until you discover so many things you don't know. Introduction. It says that the computer mouse, into bracket, plural, mice. So when you see mouse, and they are more than one, so you can call them mouses. So plural is what? Mice. Alright. The computer mouse or mice is a handheld pointing device that detects motion on a computer screen and is used to manipulate objects on a computer. It is an input device which is an essential component of the computer system. The movement detected from the mouse sends instruction to the computer to move the pointer on the screen in order to interact with files, windows, and other software elements. The computer mice come in many shapes and sizes, but are all designed to fit either in the right hand or the left hand and be used on a flat surface. So the mouse is either designed for the right hand or the left hand. Some people are left-handed, and so they will use the mouse in the left hand. Now, there are four main types of computer mice discussed in this lesson. The first is the mechanical mouse, the optical mouse, the laser mouse, and the cordless mouse. Have you ever seen a mouse with the ball in it before? Okay, so in the past we had computer mouse with balls in them. Those ones are called mechanical mouse. A mechanical mouse is a computer mouse that contains a metal or rubber ball on the underside. When the ball is rolled in any direction, sensors inside the mouse detect this motion and then move the on-screen mouse pointer in the same direction. So we used to use this particular mouse, and almost all of this type had a PS2 connector. Almost all of them. There may be one or two that had the USB, but almost all these ones had the PS2. Today this is no longer made because we've had better technologies for tracking motion and for directing the pointer, and so we have two types that are in use today. The first is an optical mouse and the second is a laser mouse. Those two are the popular ones in use today. Are you here? The optical mouse is a computer mouse that utilizes LED lights to track movement and then sends that information to the computer. Optical mouse works best on opaque surfaces. Now, when we talk about optical mouse and laser mouse, we are talking about the mice that come with lights. If you can't see a ball, a rolling ball under it, then it's light. So when you turn on your machine, you see that the light will be on. I'll demonstrate it for you to see. Now, there are two types of those kind of mice. One is the optical, and the optical, what distinguishes it is that it uses LED lights. It uses what? There are different types of lights. LED is a simple LED. Let's look at the laser mouse. Now, sometimes it is hard to tell the difference. So you may not be able to tell whether what you are using is optical or laser, but there's also a way to find out. Now, the laser mouse is a computer mouse that uses laser lights to track movement and then sends that information to the computer. So what's the difference between the laser mouse and the optical mouse? The laser mouse utilizes or uses laser lights. Did you see the difference? Uses laser light, and the optical mouse uses what? LED light. Now listen, laser light is more powerful than LED light and has greater accuracy. The laser mouse is a newer technology and much more expensive than the optical mouse. So a laser mouse is more expensive because it uses laser lights. Laser lights are more accurate than the LED lights. So laser mouse will work better than the optical mouse. Most of the time when you buy a mouse, the box will tell you whether you are having an optical mouse or laser mouse. The price too can tell you that you have optical or laser. Maybe you may not be able to see the lights and detect it. Either it is written somewhere on the mouse or on the box that came with the mouse. Now, some of the lights are red, some of them are blue, some of them are not even visible. So you can't say your light is red so it's laser, or your light is blue so it's optical. You can't tell. So optical can also be blue or red. Laser can also be blue or red. But the question I want to ask you is that the laser mouse and the optical mouse, which one is more modern? The laser mouse is modern than the optical mouse. Then we also have what is called the cordless mouse. Cordless mouse, also called a wireless mouse, is a mouse that connects to a computer without the use of cable. Instead, it uses some sort of wireless technology like Bluetooth, RF or infrared radio waves. Usually a USB receiver is plugged into the computer, which receives the wireless signals from the mouse. So when you are using a wireless mouse, you have this small adapter here that you have to plug it in one of your USB ports. Immediately you do that, it will establish communication between this and that, either through Bluetooth, RF or infrared, and your mouse will work. Unless the computer you are using, or unless the mouse you are using came from the same manufacturer of the computer system. For example, when you are using Apple mouse, you don't need to plug in any adapter or receiver, because the machine is from Apple, the mouse is from Apple, so they've already built it into it. But most of the time you may be using a machine from, let's say, Dell, and your mouse is from HP, so you definitely need to connect this, because that provision was not made. Is that okay? The mouse you see here uses light to detect the motion. It's just like the light you see here. The light you see here are just there for fashion. Yes, and not just fashion. Sometimes when you are operating in the dark, using a computer in the dark, it helps you to see where the mouse is so that you don't get lost. Sometimes the keyboards have backlight. Some are just for fashion, but not only fashion. Definitely sometimes when you are typing in the dark, you don't see the keys. I don't know if you've experienced that. So the backlights help you to see the letters and you can type. So most gaming mice are designed this way, so things done for entertainment are like this. Like the keyboard I showed you the last time, you see that we could on the backlight, right? So this mouse comes with that keyboard. This is a mouse for that keyboard, so they all come in one box, and it's also like at 70 cedis. I don't know if it has changed now. So most of the time you see that the lights are red. What you don't know is that there's a camera inside, and the camera takes pictures of the surface and it sends that information to a chip, and the chip controls the pointer. So a lot goes on that you don't know. You just see it simple like this. A lot goes on. Alright, so both the optical and laser mice have the lights under them, and for now the only difference, or the only way I'll tell you, is that you look for the indication. For example, this one they've written 30 optical mouse, so this is an optical mouse. Alright, so now it's time to learn some amazing things about the mouse. Please, are you here? Let's start by looking at the mouse control buttons. The modern computer mouse has three main control buttons. We have the left button, we have the right button, and we have this one here in the middle called what? Scroll wheel. So the left is here, and the right button and the scroll wheel. Now the left button, also referred to as the primary button. Very soon I'll ask you why it is the primary button. Main button or left click button is used for common tasks such as selecting objects and activating commands. The left button here is the main button or the primary button for controlling the computer. All others are secondary and tertiary, but this is a main button used for controlling the computer. The reason why the left button is the primary button is because most people are right-handed, number one, and most people have control over this finger. Is it the index finger? That's the index finger, right? Yes. Okay, so most people have control over the index, or most people, the muscle in the index finger is always strong because people are right-handed. Most people are right-handed. Only few people are left-handed, right? Only few people are left-handed. So the mouse was designed this way because if you check the shape and everything, it's designed to fit in the right hand perfectly. And when you hold the mouse, you put 2 fingers on these 2 buttons. Your index finger will be on this button, the primary button, that is the left button, and your middle finger will be on the right button. We'll talk about that. Because you have more control over your index finger, or you have more strength in your index finger, because you have more strength in your index finger, that is why the left button is assigned the main button, because the strength in the right finger is not that strong like the index finger, so you have more control over the mouse with your index finger. We also have the right button, also referred to as the secondary button. So sometimes you'll be asked which button is a primary and which button is a secondary on the computer mouse. The secondary is the right button. It is also called the right click button, and it is used for displaying menu options. It has one main job or task, and that is for displaying options or the menu. Anytime you right click, you are going to see some list. No matter where you are, anytime you right click, you are going to get a list. The list will give you the menu of where you right clicked, and then you'll be able to go through, and whichever one you want to select, you use a left to select. So the left is what is mainly used for selecting. Actually, you can also use a right to select after the menu shows, after the menu is displayed. So in this list like this, I can use right to select this, and it worked. I can, okay, so right now I'm trying to click here with the right, it's not working. But when I right click, watch what happens. When I right click here, I get options, right? I see a menu. So anytime you right click, you are going to get a list, and the list will be based on where you right click. If I right click here, I'll get a different list. If I right click here, I'll get a different list. If I right click here, I have a different list. If I right click here, I have a different list. So for selecting, you use the left button. For seeing or viewing options or the menu, you use a right button. So take note of that. Now, what I'll tell you is that people who are left-handed can also use a mouse. But if you are a left-handed person, you need to go to the control panel. Let me open to the control panel right now. Just type control here, and under mouse, you see mouse here. Can you see mouse? Okay, you can select mouse from here, and it will bring you the mouse properties where you will adjust the settings of the mouse. Which button is here? It says switch primary and what? Now when you see primary, which one is selected? The left is selected, right? When I check this box, the primary will switch to what? The right. Now what I'm trying to tell you is that if you are a left-handed person, you have to come and do this setting. Then you move the control of the primary to the right, because when you are using your left hand, your strength is in the right, and this one becomes secondary. So if you are left-handed, you have to switch the positions. But the mouse was designed for right-handed people because most people in the world are right-handed. You can't do anything about that. We also have what is called a scroll wheel. It's called a what? And it's a hard plastic or rubber disc on the mouse used for scrolling. It is used for scrolling. So anytime you want to scroll, you use a scroll wheel to scroll up and down. When you move the scroll wheel up, the page moves up. When you move the scroll wheel down, the page moves down, and it helps us to scroll. Is it not easy to scroll? Yeah, so this is one of the advantages of using the scroll wheel or a mouse. When you are using laptops, what you see on laptop is not called a mouse, it is called a touchpad. On a laptop you have what? A touchpad. You don't have a mouse. Let me show you. Now watch what I'm going to do. Watch this. I'm going to activate something and I'll leave it, and the page is going to scroll by itself. I'm going to teach you how to do that, but you can set your mouse to be scrolling by itself, and even when you are not holding it, it can scroll. You can control the speed. You can make it go slow, very very slow, so that you read what you want to read, or you can make it go very very fast, very very fast as you want. I don't want it to be too fast, that's why I'm choosing this. I want to stop at where we have the laptop keyboard. We are going to see a laptop keyboard, and I'm going to stop over there. Okay, so that's the laptop keyboard. Laptops have this here. This is called a touchpad. Sometimes it can also be called a trackpad sometimes, and sometimes we have external trackpads with a stylus, and a stylus is like a pen that you use to control it. Have you seen that before? Excellent. So most graphic designers make use of the stylus with an external trackpad. So this thing is not called mouse. On the laptop, don't say that my laptop mouse is not working. This is not a mouse, this is a touchpad. Mouse is like this because it looks like a mouse. Does this thing look like a mouse? Sometimes, right? Sometimes when no one is here and I see some of them, sometimes I feel like it seems like I've seen a mouse. Because of the cable, it looks like a mouse just from here. Yeah, some of them really look like mouse. So like this, doesn't it look like mouse to you? Okay, so we have the left button, right button, and the scroll wheel. All right, now let's look at how to hold the mouse. Most people don't know how to hold a mouse, especially beginners. And if you are not a beginner, you may not understand why we are even talking about this. But if you see some of the computer illiterates or people who are very very new hold the mouse, some people, they push the mouse like this, trying to control it. Even the pointer, if they are here and they want the pointer to come all the way here, they have to push the mouse. Sometimes you see what is happening, and the way they hold it, and if they want to move, sometimes the way they behave. Listen, if you are not a beginner, you will not understand it, but it happens. So to hold the mouse, this is the right way to hold the mouse. You will place your index finger on the left button over here, and it should be in line with the scroll wheel. So in line with the scroll wheel. Then your middle finger will also be at the other side, or in line with the scroll wheel, a little bit towards the front of the scroll wheel. It shouldn't be too much here, but a little bit towards the front, so you come forward just a little bit. And then your thumb here should press towards the side, and your ring finger should also press towards the other side. So this is how to hold the mouse. Your thumb will press here, your ring finger and your ring finger will press the other side, and that is it. If you want to move the mouse, What you do is that you place this part of your hand on the table, this part over here, you place it on the table, and you should be able to access the four corners of the screen. You should be able to access the four corners of the screen, and that means you should be able to control the mouse without moving your hand itself. If you try moving the pointer downwards and let's say you lose control in the middle, you can raise or lift the mouse, lift it and move it forward again and drag it downwards. What I'm saying is that if you are trying to move downwards and you lose control somewhere here, you can raise it again and do this. Did you see that? But when you are using the mouse, you should just use the mouse like this without moving your hand around too much. If you have to, it's just a little, just for comfort. But by holding the mouse like this, you should be able to move around the entire screen. Yes, so this is how you hold the computer mouse. I want all of you to hold the mouse and I'll inspect it. I want to see how you hold the mouse. So hold the mouse and I'll inspect. And if you don't do it for now, over here we have the anatomy of the computer mouse, and we are actually studying the mechanical mouse and the optical mouse, and we are seeing how it works. So you see this picture here, you see that this is mechanical and optical mouse. Left click, scroll wheel, right click. It has a connector here, PS2, but when you look inside, you will see that we have the scroll wheel appearing here. We have a right click switch here, forward and back roller. There are some rollers in it, forward and back roller inside here, and as the ball turns, that roller also moves and it moves forward and back. We have an encoder here. We have the ball itself and it rolls on the surface. We have here side to side roller. So we have a forward and back roller, we have side to side roller. So these two rollers help the mouse to move in the direction it desires. Then we also have a circuit board. There's a board in it, and we have the left click switch over here. We have our cable and our PS2 connector here. Then when you look at the optical mouse, we have the outside casing just like the mechanical mouse. We also have a circuit board in it. We have a cable and it uses USB connector. So almost all the optical and laser mice uses a USB connector. And what happens here is that we have actually zoomed in this area over here, and so you can see that there's a camera in it. We also have a light beam that reflects from the surface. So there's a camera that takes pictures, and there is the light beam that reflects on the surface. We have the LED over here, and we have something called a prism. It creates some kind of reflection that allows the pointer to get the correct direction. So it's like a mirror over here. So this is how the inside of the optical mouse looks like, and the laser as well. Computer mice have two main types of connectors. We have the PS2 connector, which you know very well, and the PS2 for mouse is the green one. The purple one is not for mouse, it's for what? Keyboard. Today the PS2 has been replaced by the USB. So if you are not around in the days of PS2, then today this is what you'll be seeing. The universal serial bus is what you'll be seeing. Now the PS2 mouse have these two ports, and it says that the PS2 mouse connector, this one here, is a 6-pin mini DIN connector designed in 1987. It is connected to the PS2 mouse port that is green in color behind desktop computers. The PS2 port is rarely used nowadays, given that it has been largely replaced by the USB port. So the green port here is for mouse. You connect the PS2 mouse connector into it. When it comes to the USB mouse has come to replace the PS2 mouse. This industry standard was developed in the mid 1990s. So this is a USB, and you can just plug it in and you are free. And you can actually plug it in any USB port. When it comes to PS2, you need to plug it into a specific port. Alright, let's learn what we can about the mouse pointer shapes. Mouse pointer shapes. The mouse pointer, also known as a mouse cursor or mouse arrow, is a graphical image that is used to activate or control certain elements in a graphical user interface or GUI. Now, listen to me. The mouse pointer is also called the mouse cursor. So when you talk about the cursor or the mouse cursor, you are talking about the mouse pointer. When you open to a text editor and you start typing, you see something blinking that is called the typing cursor. We have a typing cursor and we have the mouse cursor. The mouse cursor is the pointer that moves around, and it has several shapes based on where it is placed at any given point in time. So when I'm in this area, this is how it looks. It looks like a vertical bar. Have you seen it? When I'm here, this is how it looks. When I am here, this is how it looks. You see how it's looking now? When I'm here, this is how it looks. There are several shapes of the mouse pointer. So let's look at them. The mouse pointer follows the path of the user's hand as they move their mouse. By default, it looks like a pointed arrow. When positioned over selectable text, it appears as an I-beam cursor. When hovering over a link, it appears as a pointing hand. Have you ever seen a link that you want to click on before? If you want to click, you see how it appears? It appears like a hand. It's the same pointer, but based on where you are, it will change the shape. Alright, so over here, these are some of the shapes we have put down for you, and we have the first one that is called the normal select. After the normal select, we have the help select. So when you are clicking on something and the thing is going to provide you help, it will turn into this. Also, we have this one here that says working in the background. So when you see it this way, it means something is loading. Something is loading. When you see it this way, it means it is what? Busy. And when it is busy, leave it alone. When it is loading, you may choose to leave it alone, or you can work with it. But when it turns to this, it means busy. If you click when it is busy, your window will not respond. They will write not responding, and your screen can turn into white, and it can be there for some time, and if it becomes free, it can release it, or it can freeze the computer. So if you don't want your machine to freeze, anytime you see your mouse rolling like this, you leave it. Okay, so we have other shapes like the vertical resize, like I showed you, horizontal resize, diagonal resize, 1, 2, move. Anytime you see this shape, it means you are about to move something. This one is for text select. When you're about to type text, this is what you see, or select text, this is what you see. Alternate select is like this, link hand and handwriting unavailable, you see this. So when you are going somewhere and there's an error, it will turn into this. Alright, now all of these shapes can be controlled in the control panel. Later we will learn more about the control panel. In the control panel, under the mouse properties, there are several controls you can do here. You can control the mouse speed, you can control the pointers. Do you see the pointers here? So the pointers I just showed you, They are all here. Can you see them? They are all here. We have location select, person select, we have more. Now this is one particular scheme. We call this a scheme. I can come here and change the scheme to a different scheme. So when I choose this scheme, busy will now look like this. Working in the background or loading will now look like this because of the scheme I've selected. If I apply, it will take effect right now. So now it has taken effect. I have a different mouse scheme. If I don't like this, I can come here and change the scheme and I'll get this. Let me apply and you see that my mouse has changed to black. Can you see? So it is using these group. So it's like they are all in groups. It depends on which group you want to use. So you can go through them and whichever one is okay for you, you choose it. This is a Windows default extra large. I think that's what I like. But we have different types, and you can even download more. You can even download some that come with human hand and a whole lot. So there are different schemes. All right, so this is what I will use and I'm okay. You can also enable your pointer shadow so that when you move around it sends a shadow behind you, especially when the system is loading. Anyway, or the scheme you've selected, based on the scheme you've selected. All right, we also have what is called a text cursor. The text cursor is an underscore or vertical line. Sometimes you get an underscore. Have you seen an underscore before? For example, when you open to CMD command prompt, you see there is an underscore blinking, right? Good. So this is an underscore blinking, and this is also a text cursor. So the text cursor can be an underscore, and I can use it to type commands and it will work. The text cursor can also be a vertical line, like when you are in Notepad or Microsoft Word, it's a vertical line like this. You see a vertical line blinking. Excellent. Which may be steady or flashing, like the command prompt. It doesn't flash. Does it flash? Let's see. Does it flash? Okay, it's flashing. Some of them do not flash. Some of them will be steady, others will be flashing on the monitor, indicating where text will be placed when entered. And it's also called the insertion points. Okay. We also have a mouse pad. A mouse pad is a flat cloth or plastic surface on which a computer mouse is placed for easy movement. It enhances the usability of the mouse as compared to a direct contact on a table by providing a surface to allow accurate measurement of its movement. Some mouse pads increase ergonomics by providing a padded rest. So like this one, it has a rest here that will help you rest your hand, so it increases ergonomics. All right, so these are mouse pads. They aid in the accuracy of the movement because there are some surfaces your light will not be able to detect the movement. There are some surfaces when you try moving, it doesn't work. Even here, I think we have some surfaces that when you try using your mouse, you struggle a lot. So unless you get a mouse pad, using the mouse will be difficult. All right, so let's continue. We want to talk about the mouse control techniques. Mouse control techniques. There are about 15 ways of controlling the computer mouse, which are as follows. So it's 14 or 15 ways. The first control is called the single click, and you'll be clicking on the primary button, single click. So when you single click, you can either select an icon, select list item, select menu options, activate command buttons, or activate a hyperlink. Now on your desktop, I want you to select an icon. Don't double click, just click on an icon. Okay, so this means you are selecting an icon. This is how we select items with the left click. So you click once and it will select something. Right click in an empty area of your desktop and select refresh, and the select here, you will use a left button, the primary button, to select, but I'm telling you to right click and select refresh. So when you do this, it reloads your desktop for you. Alright, so sometimes we activate commands by using the single click. So let's say you have a window like this and you are trying to close, and they ask you, do you want to save changes? You can select save, don't save, or cancel. It's just a single click. Then we also have what we call double click, and I'll be explaining double click and what I call clicking twice. I'll tell you the meaning of clicking twice. So we have double click and clicking twice. The double click is used to launch an application or open a folder, a file, or a drive. It is also used to highlight a word in a text editor. So on your desktop, I want you to find an application and double click on it, and you will see that it will launch it or open it. Find any application and double click on it. So let's say Firefox. I have Firefox. I double click. Now double clicking means clicking twice very fast. Some beginners don't know how to double click. When you are double clicking, just relax and double click. Did you hear the sound? Just double click like that. Alright, also in a text editor or anywhere you have text, we use a double click to select words. Very important. Please, are you here? For example, what I'm reading here, if I want to select a word, I'll double click on the word and the word will be highlighted. So I want you to find any document or open to Microsoft Word and type something right now. Just open to Microsoft Word, press on Windows R and type the name of Microsoft Word and open to Microsoft. Now when you open to Microsoft Word, I want you to type this. I'm setting my font to 48 and I'm typing this. Computer literacy is the ability to understand and use computer programs in an effective manner. So just type this. So just type something like this in your Microsoft Word. If you want to highlight, let's say, literacy, you can just double click on it. This helps a lot. This is used a lot because sometimes you may want to apply a color on a word. Double clicking on a word will highlight it anytime you have text. Another way to highlight is this. Watch this. You click and hold one end of the word and drag and drag and drag and drag and drag. This is a long process and beginners struggle with this a lot. So you are learning that just double click a word and you highlight it. So now double click on literacy and give it color yellow. Double click on literacy color red. Double click on understand and give it color green. Double click on ability and underline it. Double click on computer and italize it. Double click on programs and make it bold. Double click on effective and make it yellow or orange. So look at mine. Just double click and apply all these effects. That means you are selecting the text. Now we are moving to our third control, and the third control says clicking twice with 2 seconds interval. Clicking twice with a 2-second interval, what will happen? It helps you to rename a file, folder, or drive. I want to show you something. Press Windows D and show your desktop. On the desktop, I want you to create a folder. Do you know how to create a folder? Yes. To create a folder, right click, select new, and select folder. Now when you do that, you will see that a folder will be created And what will happen is that the folder name will be highlighted and the name is new folder. This is what I want to tell you. When beginners are creating folders and they see something like this, what they will do is that they will click here and clear everything and type their name. That is a waste of time. When you are using computers, you need to be fast. So anytime you see any name that is highlighted, this is highlighted because I can see that it's in blue, right? It means it's highlighted. When any file name is highlighted, what it means is that you can go ahead and rename it, type your new name, and it will overwrite the old name. So I want you to type your first name. Just type your first name. Start typing, and from today when you see anything like that, remember that you just have to start typing unless it is not highlighted. When you do that, press enter once and the name will be accepted. Now clicking twice with 2 seconds interval, this is what it does. Watch this. What it means is that anytime there is any file or folder, please click outside. Click outside. If you want to rename, don't click on the picture here or the icon here. Click on the name. This is what you do. You click one. Actually, you can wait as long as you want, so long as you've clicked first one. Then you click on the name 2. When you do that, it will highlight the name for you to rename. Now watch this. Before you do yours, to rename anything, you are actually supposed to right click and you look at the option and select what. But instead of doing this, you can just use your mouse to do it. Anything at all you want to rename, click on it once and click on the name second, and it will highlight the name for you to rename. I didn't say click on the picture and click on it again. I didn't say double click. When you double click, you have sent a different command. Do you understand? Which command have you sent when you double click? Let me show you. Wait a minute. Before we even move here, we're talking about a double click. With a double click, this is what happens. Anytime you see the menu of any folder, all the options here, one of them will be in bold. Check everything here and tell me which one is in bold. Which one is in bold? Open. That means when you double click, that is what will be activated. It is not every time that double clicking will open. What double clicking will do is that it will activate the default command. So when I right click here, the default command says open. I can right click and select open, but let me show you something else. There are certain things that when you double click, you are not actually going to open. Watch this. Look at where I am. I'm in the recycle bin. I don't know if you've heard of recycle bin, but that is where I am. When I right click on this, which option is in bold? That means when you double click, it is not going to restore, it's not going to cut, it's not going to delete, but it is going to show you what. Let me double click and you see whether it's true or false. When I double click on this, it is not going to open. It showed me what? Properties. And you see that the mouse is busy, right? Can you see that the icon is busy? Well, this is not busy. This is what? Working in the background or loading. This one means loading or working in the background. So this one you can still move around with it, and that is it. So what I'm trying to say is that double clicking does not mean open. Double clicking actually means activate the default command. Most of the time the default command is what? Open. That is why when you double click, you see it open. All right, so right now what I want you to do is that I want you to use the mouse intelligently to rename this folder back to, okay, put your last name instead of your first name. Just click on it once, click on it twice, but this time just click on the text, don't click on the icon. It will allow you to edit and type your last name. All right, so please take note of that because it will help you a lot. When you are using a computer, you need to operate the computer with understanding, with ease. If you want to rename and you are struggling to rename, everyone will know that you don't know how to use a computer well. But when you want to rename and you do this, everyone will know that, wow, you are an experienced user, because most people don't know this. Number 4 says what? Number 4 says triple click, and triple clicking will highlight an entire sentence of text in Microsoft Word. So in Microsoft Word, what you created, be on any word and click 3 times. Triple click means as fast as possible, 3 times, and it will highlight the entire sentence. So you know that double clicking responded to just 1 word. Triple clicking responded to the entire sentence. That means there's a difference between the double click and the triple click. Maybe you've never heard triple click before, but you can triple click to do something. All right, let's move on to the next thing. The next item says right click, and right click will obviously display your menu options. So anytime you right click, it will display your menu options, right? The last time we learned about a key on the keyboard that helps you right click. Who knows the name of that key? There's a key on your keyboard, and when you press it, it will right click for you. It's called the menu key. Alright, good. So now you know how to right click. Anytime you right click, you see a menu and you see options, and depending on where you right click, you are going to get a different menu. Now number 6 says what? Scroll wheel. What? That means, what's this? When I roll my scroll wheel upwards, the page will scroll up. When they tell you to scroll up, this is what we mean by scroll up. It means move the page up. Let's see what is at the top of the page. That's what scroll up means. When we say scroll down, it means let's see what is at the bottom of the page, at the down side of the page. So you scroll down. To scroll down, you scroll the scroll wheel downwards. You scroll it downwards. To scroll up, you scroll it upwards. That's what it means. Now watch this. When I'm scrolling up, the page looks like it is going down, right? Yeah. So people confuse themselves, and when you say scroll up, then they will be scrolling down. They think when you say this is scrolling up. This is not scrolling up. This is scrolling down, because I am moving to the down part of the document. I want to see what is at the down part. So that's scrolling down. When I want to see what is at the top, we call it scrolling up. Okay, good. So you've seen what the scroll wheel does. The next thing I'm going to teach you, in Ghana, only 5 people know how to do it. Last year, Corona killed 4 straight. They just left with 1 person. So I'm going to teach you. Number 7 says scroll wheel clicking, and it is used to activate the automatic scrolling. Now watch this. Do you remember that I did something like this and the page was scrolling by itself? We use a scroll button to do that. Okay, so in your Microsoft Word, after your last word here, under manner, hold Control and press enter 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. After manner, hold Control key and press enter 10 times. What will happen is that you will get 10 additional pages. Then I want you to use your scroll wheel to do automatic scrolling. To do automatic scrolling works. Watch this. You will click on it. This scroll wheel, click on it. Don't move it up or down. Just click. When you click, what will happen is that the pointer will change to this up and down arrows with a circle in the middle. Have you seen it? Now, what this one means is that it is in a central position now. If you push the mouse forward, it will go forward. If you push the mouse downwards, it will go down. That's why you have 2 arrows. One is facing the top, one is facing the down. Are you with me? And where the circle is the midpoint. Right now, that's the midpoint. The closer you are to the midpoint, the slower the scrolling will be. the farther you are away from the midpoint, the faster the scrolling will be. So if I move it, watch this, if I move it up just a little away from the midpoint, you see that my scrolling will be slow. Can you see? But if I move it far away, the more far I move it, the more faster my scrolling will be. Can you see that it's very fast? Good. Okay, so this automatic scrolling, how can it help a computer user? So whenever you are reading, you can use the automatic scrolling to scroll through the page so that you can read. It only works with the scroll wheel. So if you don't have a mouse with a scroll wheel, it's not going to work. Apart from reading, if you just want to glance through something, you can just turn it on and it will glance through for you. Alright, number 8 is highlighting. Now, okay, open to your Microsoft Word and you are going to do highlighting. Watch this. To highlight means click and hold and drag your mouse till you get to the end of the highlighting. It's important to know how to highlight. Beginners struggle with highlighting a lot. Alright, let's continue. We're almost done. Number 9 is what? Drag and drop. And drag and drop, what it does is that it changes the position or location of a selected item. So what I want you to do is this. Do you remember the folder you created? Drag it and drop it somewhere else. Drag means click on it and hold and move it, and as you are moving you should see it move, and drop it somewhere. Excellent. Have you done it? Yes. Now this is what I want you to do. Drag and drop it in the recycle bin. That's another way to delete. Just drop it in the recycle bin. If you have a recycle bin, drop it in it. Did it go in? Yes. Okay, so that's another way to do what? No, to delete. If you want to delete something, drag it and drop it in the recycle bin. It's the same as deleting. Have you dumped something in the garbage bin before? Excellent. It's the same thing. Okay, so we're almost done. Watch this. Number 10 says what? Control plus drag. Now, on your desktop, right click and select undo delete. Right click and select undo delete. Do you see undo delete? Select it. What does it mean? Okay, it means you should restore what you deleted. That's excellent. Now hold control and drag and drop your folder. Just the folder. Hold control and drag and drop. Hold control and drag and drop your folder. Drag and drop anywhere, but hold control this time and tell me what will happen. It has duplicated, right? Anytime you want to create a copy of any document, any file, any folder, just control drag and drop. It means duplicate. All these things you are learning them to be more proficient with using the computer or with the computer. When you know these simple things, using the computer becomes automatic and professional, and everything goes well and you are able to work fast. Now this is what I want you to do. Open the second folder, and inside the second folder, this is what we are going to do. Inside the second folder, we are going to create a folder within the second folder. I'm going to teach you a shortcut for creating a folder. Do you want to learn? Okay. Hold Control, hold Shift together and press N. Hold Control, hold Shift and press N. Have you done that? If you have done that, I want you to type computing and press enter. So this is a shortcut for creating a folder. Don't forget it. Last time we learned about keyboard shortcuts. You can use several shortcuts to do several things. Now, are you done with creating your computing folder? This is what I want you to do. Watch this. Hold Control and drag and drop the computing folder in the same window. Just drag it and move it aside a little bit. Not outside the window, but within the same window. Control and drag and drop. Drop it anywhere inside. Have you done that? This is what I want you to do next. Watch me. Highlight the two folders. Look at how to highlight files and folders. This is how to highlight. Highlight the two like this. When you are not dealing with text, this is how we highlight. Highlight the two first. Hold Control, drag and drop one of them in the middle of the window. Highlight. When you finish highlighting, leave it. Now press Ctrl, drag and drop. Now watch this. I want you to highlight all the four like this. Look on my screen. Highlight all the four like this. Have you seen it? Press Ctrl and drag and drop one of them in the middle of the window and tell me how many you got. If you are finding it difficult to know how many you have, just look on the status bar and you see something. Okay, now watch this. Highlight everything, hold Ctrl, drag and drop, and tell me what you have. I want you to right click in an empty space, go to view and select list. Right click in an empty space, go to view within the window, empty space, right click, view and list. If you have done that, highlight everything here, hold Ctrl and drag and drop in the middle, and let me see. Okay, now click outside in an empty space. Now press Ctrl A on your keyboard. Press Ctrl A. Now hold Ctrl and drag and drop one of them in an empty area. Hold Ctrl, drag and drop one of them in an empty area. Good. How many do you have now? Now click outside and press Ctrl A. Hold Ctrl and drag and drop one of them in an empty space. How many do you have? 128. Find the space outside and click, and then press Ctrl A to select all. Then hold Ctrl and drag and drop one of them in any empty space you find. Make sure you are not dropping in a folder. Drop in any empty space you will find. Have you done that? How many do you have? Now click outside, press Ctrl A, and hold Ctrl and drag and drop one of them in an empty space. Make sure you don't drop on another folder. Find an empty space and drop it there. But make sure you have pressed Ctrl A and you have selected everything and you are doing that. Have you done that? How many do you have? 512. Click outside, press Ctrl A, hold Ctrl and drag one of them into an empty space. Have you done that? Now click outside, press Ctrl A, hold Ctrl and drag and drop one of them in an empty space. Make sure you don't drop onto another folder. Okay, repeat the same until you have over 12,000 folders. So in just few minutes you can create over 12,000 folders. So this is the power of duplication. You can duplicate and duplicate. Now what I want to show you is this. After duplicating this one, stop and go and locate the folder you duplicated on the desktop. That folder is on your desktop and you did your duplication from inside that folder. So right click that folder and go to the properties of that folder. So when this is done, minimize and go to the desktop, find that folder, right click and select properties. When you go to properties, you will see the number of subfolders you created. I want you to check here. It says contains. Do you see contains?
Yes.
And you will see files. How many files do you see?
0.
Are you sure?
Yes.
And how many folders? You have uncountable folders, several folders, right?
Yes.
But do you know that there is no file in your any of your folders?
Yes.
So very soon we will learn about what files are and how they are different from folders. So even though we've created hundreds and thousands of folders, we have no file. Now I want you to check how much space all your folders combined took on your computer. How much space they all occupy? How much space all your folders combined occupy on your computer?
0.
Go and check size and tell me what you see. What do you see?
0.
Are you sure?
Yes.
You mean all the folders, they didn't even occupy 1 byte? All the thousands of folders, they didn't even occupy 1 bit? Does it surprise you? It doesn't surprise you. Even though they are empty, but they are something you can see and open. Are they not occupying space? And there are thousands of them. Shouldn't they occupy even 1 bit? The computer is an amazing technology. Even though some of you have 10,000 folders, they all occupy 0 bytes, not even 1 bit, let alone 1 byte. Alright, so we've seen the control drag. We also have right button drag and drop. You can also use a right button to do a drag and drop. And what will happen is that it will select an option on the new position of the selected item. So when you drop, you will see the options. Number 12 says drawing. Do you know we use a mouse to draw? If you're a graphic designer, don't use your laptop's touchpad for drawing. With your finger, you can't draw well. You can draw perfectly with a mouse. You can do detailed architectural design with your mouse. We use a mouse for drawing. You can also use the stylus for drawing, but it is best to use mouse. So if you are learning graphic design, don't come to graphic design class with a laptop without a mouse. If you have a laptop, go and buy an extra mouse, because without that you can't do designs. We use mouse for designing and drawing. Number 13 says right click and right select. You can use right click to also, you can use a right button to right click and also to select with the right button. I already showed you that. The 14th one is what I want to show you. It is called hovering. Now look at hovering. Look on my desktop. When I put my mouse on something, you will see that it will appear as if it has selected it, and there will be a small screen tip or a small pop-up that will give me information, right? Now with this one, I have not clicked. I just want to hover over. We call it hover over. When you hover over an icon, it will give you some small information that will help you understand what the file or icon is made of. So I want you to hover over all your icons and let me see what happens. You will see that they will appear as if you've selected, but you've not selected, and you will see some small information show. Can you see that? We call this hovering. So when they ask you to hover over something, that is what it means. Now the last but not least is what we call the side click. This side click is not available on every mouse. It's only available on mice like what you are seeing on the screen. Available on certain mice, it allows users to move forward or backwards in the Windows Explorer and web browsers. When you are browsing on the web and you want to move back, I used to have one of these mice. These two buttons here, one is for forward, one is for backwards. If you are browsing a web page and you want to go back, you don't have to travel all the way up here and click on back or forward. With the mouse, you can click side click to move back and forward. It can also perform other functions in computer games. So if you get a sophisticated mouse with the side clicks, then you can get more functions. So this brings us to the 15 functions of the computer mouse, and I want to thank you all for joining us in this class. I'll see you in the next video. If you have not subscribed, make sure you subscribe to this channel. If you have any question, leave it in the comment box and I'm going to answer you. Thank you once again, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.